Okay, guys, this is your third and final video for this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Video one was over our non-renewable resources. So our fossil fuels, if you remember, coal, oil, natural gas, nuclear energy, and our mineral resources. Video two was over our renewable energy resources. That's our sun, wind, water, geothermal, and biomass. Okay. So what I want to quickly just talk about right now is some land resources and the human impact that we have. Of course, I keep seeing those commercials or advertisements or Facebook memes that has like the animals, like the little forest animals, and it's like, this is how we leave the earth, and then it has the people. And then it's like, this is how people leave the earth. There's like trash all around it. So obviously, we impact what's going on in our world more than some of other species, so to say. So with land resource and human impact, land is a natural resource, guys. It's something from Earth that living things use to meet their needs. We talked about habitats and stuff like that. They use certain habitats to live and make their homes and to eat off of, just that whole ecosystem. So using land resources, I've got, according to my notes, I've got 5 different ways that we use our land resources. If you can come up with any other ones, feel free, stick it in comments. I'm always interested in what you guys have to say. Sometimes you guys teach me a lot more, I think, than I teach you at times. So if there's something that you're like, hey, this is a way we use land resources that you didn't mention, stick it up on there. I love to see it, okay? So the first one I have is farming. So obviously farming is gonna use land resources. Farming feeds people. The farmers grow the crops, right? So some farming practices actually hurt the environment, which is kind of weird to think about. That's something that allows us to eat that has good out of it can hurt the environment. But some of those farmers are using those chemical fertilizers, herbicides, and even pesticides. So, I've always wondered, like when I plant corn out here in the garden, it never ends up like the cornfield down the road that the farmer plants. And I'm always envious about his, sorry, the cat scared me. She's jumping from the refrigerator. So I'm always envy of the nice cornfields because they seem to all come up at the same time and they grow so tall and they get these big ears of corn. And my corn, like this big, right? Like to the point where I even quit growing corn. And I have to remember that I don't use fertilizers and I don't use chemicals to make them grow. And I don't use, I use some pesticides, but they're like organic pesticides. So I have to keep that in mind. But those are some of the things that the farmers use that actually hurt the environment, because those things, they run off into our water, and then animals drink that water, and then it poisons them, or it gets into the soil and other things can't grow into the soil. Now, some things that the farmers do to help the environment, though, like some of them will do the organic farming, where they're not using those chemicals or those pesticides. If you look at the grocery store, you'll see like an organic section of the grocery store. And, that's supposed to be an area where those farmers, that produce, they didn't use any of that chemical stuff on it. Some will use natural fertilizers. Some will use a biological pest control. So like sometimes I get pests out there, and if I use Dawn dish soap and water, it puts like this film on the plants that the bugs can't eat. So that's a biological pest control. The farmer down the road does something that we call crop rotation. So maybe 1 or 2 years he grows corn in that field, and then the next 1 or 2 years he grows soybean in the field. A lot of the farmers will do that because corn will take out a certain nutrient out of the soil, But then when he plants the beans will take out a different set of minerals and resources, and that gives it time for those minerals that the corn needs to grow and be more available. And so he does a crop rotation with that as well. Some farmers, and actually the farmer down the road on one of his fields, he does this. It's called a no-till farming. So no-till farming is where they actually just put the seed on the top of it, and then through like water and stuff, it kind of gets beat down into the ground, and it saves that topsoil, those nutrients and stuff. It saves that. Some farmers will do a contour plowing to kind of reduce the runoff. I see this sometimes. I saw it more like going up towards Nebraska, and you'll see like a field, and then you'll see like this little raised dirt road, and then you'll see field, and then another little raised dirt, and that's supposed to help with that runoff, so they're not using or losing some of that soil. So farming is a good example of how we use our land resources. You know, and there's pros and cons to both of that. It'll be in the notes there for you. The second way we use our land resources is to grow food for livestock. And so, you know, we use our land for cattle, we use our land from different livestock, and we get our meat, we get our dairy products and stuff from that. So that's a good way to use some of our land resources. Another way is wood. You know, we use wood. Even the table that I'm working off of right now is a wood table. This little buffet bar here is wood. Obviously, my floors that we're redoing, they're wood. So we use wood from the trees that we cut down for lumber, for fuel. Guys, even paper. So the paper that I'm working off of with my notes, you know, that's trees. Your pencils, those are trees. You know, this is something you probably learned back in elementary school. Okay. Here's the thing with that. Because we use those trees and we're cutting them down, they do take a while for those trees to grow. So we do have less vegetation. And because of that, those trees aren't there to help cycle the oxygen and carbon dioxide. So we're going to get higher levels of carbon dioxide because those trees aren't there to take that and release the oxygen. So people kind of go like towards the greenhouse effect and the warmer climates and stuff like that. A thing called deforestation, and deforestation means that they're going through and they're cutting down the forests. It can lead to the soil erosion because the roots aren't there to help anchor that soil into ground, or a loss of habitat. You know, if you are going to go in and you're going to clear out that forest, and we think of all the animals that live in that forest, this is a hot topic right now. And those forests and stuff are usually that they're clearing out. You know, there's some around the equator, so the tropical zones. We've got some up like Washington and Seattle that they're clearing out these old trees. So look it up and see. So we've got farming, we've got livestock, we have wood. So another way that we use our land resources is through development. Highways, parking lots, buildings, okay? So when we pave, like if I go out here to the field that nobody's doing anything with, it's just trees, and I just knock them down and I pave it, okay? Well, that pavement prevents that water from soaking into that soil, and because of that, now I'm hurting the underground water supply. So think about it that way. Even if I'm gonna clear off land to build a house, that's loss of habitat right there. I'm having to displace some of those animals that live there. Some of you have heard me talk about, like, I've got a raccoon that lives out in the front yard. I've got a possum in the backyard, okay? Well, the possum's good for me to have because he eats all the ticks and fleas. So, I mean, that's a good thing. But if I was going to add on to my house and I cleared that habitat for them, now I've displaced them, okay? So keep that in mind. So the fifth way is landfills, okay? That's where your trash goes, right? If we're not gonna send it to a company like in the second lesson, and that company is gonna burn it for electricity, it goes into a landfill, okay? So landfills are just areas where the garbage is deposited, is covered with soil after a certain point. In essence, it's like a big compost pile, but here's the problem with that. In the compost pile that I'm trying to build out in the garden, I know what's going in there, and I know, I don't know where my list, see, I have to keep a list so I know what I can put in there, okay? I know what I can put in there, and so I get that nice soil. But in a landfill, think about some of the trash that you throw away, okay? So over the course of spring break, I've been able to clean out some of these rooms because I've had time. You know, I've thrown away some metal stuff. I've thrown away some heavy plastic stuff. Okay? All that's going to go into the landfill. Guys, metal and plastic, they're not going to break down, okay? So a lot of those materials, they don't decompose. They're just going to sit there. So that's the difference between it being a good thing. I mean, if we only put stuff in there that we knew was going to decompose and make a nice compost pile, that would be one thing. But some of these materials and these things that we have around our house, they don't break down, okay? And that's where we're kind of hurting some of our land. Here's the other thing. When those landfills fill up, we have to go and build another landfill. And so, you know, we're causing a lot of harm by doing that. Those landfills, sometimes they're lined with plastic, concrete, or like a clay soil, and they're supposed to help prevent some of that stuff from leaking into the soil, the groundwater. So they're having the same problem that some of the farmers have with some of those chemicals and stuff leaking into the groundwater, and then animals and stuff are getting a hold of that as it rises back up to the surface. Under land resources on your notes, you're going to see those 5 things: farming, livestock, wood development, and landfills. The one thing I do want to talk about before I let you go is managing land resources, okay? I have 2. So, and we're going to go into more detail of this as the end of the 9 weeks continues. So we have, the first one is our natural preserves, okay? Now this is land that's been set aside, it's protected from environmental problems that we as humans cause, okay? Sometimes you'll see, I think we've got a couple like over towards Lawrence that you pass by, and you're not supposed to do any harm. Sometimes they don't even mow these areas because they want them to be as natural as possible. Again, 45 miles from here, down in Burlington, Kansas, right before you get to the Great Wolf Nuclear Power Plant, they have a natural preserve. And that's one of those things that if some of you want to get together after we're lifted from this 30-day ban, you want to go down and see, we can do that. We can do the Wolf Creek Nuclear Power Plant, the wind turbines, and John Redmond Reservoir. Just stick it in comments that you want to go, okay? The second thing that we can do to help manage our land resources is recycle. Guys, I am not good at this at all. I need to be better at this. And so that's recycling, where you're using either materials again by converting used things into new and useful products. That I'm okay with. I can kind of do that. But I'm really bad at recycling that, hey, I've got cardboard, so I'm going to take it out there to that recycling thing that the city gives us. And I'm going to put it in there, and then the recycling people are going to go and pick it up, and then they're going to use it for materials. I'm bad about that. I need to be better at that. Maybe that will be my goal as we're talking about this for 8 weeks or something. I'll be more cautious of that. I'm really good about taking like we had wood shelves like that. In Sai's bedroom and in my bedroom, my daddy built. And so I took wood shelves because she didn't want them in her room anymore. And I took my wood shelves, I made like this little wood headboard. So I'm good at taking something and using it for something else. So I guess in that way, I'm recycling. but to empty like the macaroni box and then take the macaroni box out to the recycling bin, I need to be better at that. If any of you are recyclers and you have like a system set up that could help me, love to hear it. Send me an email. I'll give you some extra credit points. So if you're one of those that are recycling and you think you've got some helpful tips to get me going, then please do that. Okay. Okay, guys, this is the end of lesson 3. This is the end of your weekly lesson. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my notes typed up, replay the video, and make sure that I've got my notes exactly the way I taught it to you guys. I'm going to put those lessons in there as well. And then you guys have the rest of the week to get those worked on, okay? As always, guys, if there's questions or concerns, let me know, okay? Talk to you later. Bye.